Hey, dude.
Yo.
How you doing?
I am present. All right.
All right, we're live, but technically the show hasn't started yet, so.
Oh, well, in that case.
I know.
Yeah.
Just figured we'd have a little bed music and just to get it going. Yeah. We can officially start the show.
Yeah.
Got a few people in here hanging out with us. We're about to go live for our 53-man roster reaction. Go ahead and give us a like, and let's boost up the likes, and we can get going here in a minute. I think you're sounding okay, Adam.
Okay. Well, thank goodness.
Okay, cool. Here we go.
All right.
This is the Seahawkers podcast, live and uncatfished. I'm Brandan Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me with yet a different camera angle than I'm used to getting every other time that we talk. It changes from time to time. This is why you need to tune in on YouTube, just to see which direction we get to see Adam from. Adam, how you doing?
Yeah, well, in this case, the reason why we're a couple minutes late is that as I move my monitor onto my little podcasting rig here, the mount broke. So I got to screw it together really quickly. And yeah, it's a little low. I'm slouching down and all that. But even though I'm slouching down, doesn't mean I'm not fired up. I mean, 53-man roster, bud. Good stuff.
It is good. It's also a little bit somber in some cases because there are all players that I think that, or there are a few players that I think a lot of us would have liked to see on the roster, but there are also some players who I know we really wanted to see make the roster, and they did, and we are definitely going to get into it. So yeah, I'm happy, but also we need to recognize too that with some of these players, you know, the greener pastures ahead for some of them.
Oh, for sure. And there's always the practice squad as well. And I even looked it up because I always forget how many guys do they get to keep there. So 16 practice squad guys. There's a number of those dudes that were cut today that I'm excited to see if we can get onto the practice squad. Now they are available to other teams. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, even after watching that third preseason game, seeing a lot of the guys that are a little further down on the depth chart there, like, man, there's a lot of talent here. I want to keep them all. I just want to collect them all. Is that wrong?
Like, can we have 90-man rosters for the regular season NFL? I mean, I know the owners probably don't want it because then they have to pay all these guys regular season salaries. But as fans, you know what? We can push for it. Get larger rosters so we can have these guys all year long.
Heck yeah. No doubt about it. Because there's a couple of those dudes that didn't make the roster here, Brandon, that obviously it's sad, but it's definitely not the end of their journey. But a couple of those dudes that we definitely want to see on the practice squad. Is there one? Give me two that stand out to you, Brandon, that you really hope make it there.
That make it to the practice squad. Let me think about that, because first we have to get in a comment from our live executive producer, Ryan 911 $9.99 for a new mount for Adam. Got to keep the live content coming at any cost.
Oh, heck yeah. No, I'm still experimenting with this new setup that I had to do here. One of the commenters asked if, the background was something that I did myself. And yeah, pretty much I built the whole thing. But those are all scrap woods from other Brandon's sawmill. So I think it's starting to look good. But with Ryan's donation here, with his support, like he always brings, I can make it even better. So appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, we are going to go through the 53-man roster. And why don't I bring it up here just to see who was cut among the so I took this, Adam, from the Green Bay game as far as the depth chart goes. And so as we go through these, you can see just kind of where we went from the Green Bay game and where we are at now with the 53-man roster. And really on this screen, not a whole lot has changed. Seahawks specialists we're looking at here. So special teamers and DJ Dallas still on the team as punt returner, kick returner. We'll see if that shifts at any point. But Jason Myers, Michael Dixon, Chris Stoll all make the 53. And Aesop Winston, unfortunately, did not make it. And D. Eskridge does not count toward the final 53 because he is suspended for the first 6 games.
Correct. Aesop is one of those men that I would like to see on the practice squad if at all possible. He's got Doug Baldwin vibes all day.
Yeah. Did you say I can only pick 2?
No, I just wanted to know if there were 2 right off the top of your head that you really wanted. You can pick as many as you like, dude. Up to 16.
Well, if I were to pick just 2, well, here's the thing. As we go through this, and as we'll save the offense for the end, because I think there is an opportunity with some of the things going on with the roster, because as it stands right now, this is the 53, but there are some players that I think end up making it to the 53-man roster that we have, I don't know, by the end of the week. And there's obviously going to be players that we go out and look for other depth. There's going to be there's just going to be changes from now. Shoot. I mean, yeah, it's not going to look like this in just a couple days. But looking at the defense, some notable cuts on the defensive line and outside linebackers. Levi Bell, I know there's some sadness among Seahawks fans that Levi Bell did not make the final 53. Probably a short list, on the short list for some folks. You know what? I'll make a decision right now. Levi Bell would be one of the guys that I would have liked to have kept along with the aforementioned receiver.
Absolutely. With Aesop Winston.
Yeah.
On the defensive side of the ball here, Brandon, when I'm looking through these names, and the greens are the cuts, yeah?
The greens are the cuts. The purple are the people who came in on the PUP and have stayed on the PUP, so they do not count.
Okay, gotcha. I would have liked to seen Gotel or Perry, which either of those guys, whatever flavor you like of those two. I think they both showed some nice plays in the run game, and with a big body, a defensive tackle type player. I would have been happy to see one of those stick around or at least make it to the practice squad.
Yeah. And we don't know the extent of Cam Young's injury. He might be a guy, and this is what I'm talking about in terms of the final roster, because one thing that we can see happen from here to Friday is if they decide that Cam Young is going to be out for 4 more weeks to start the season, they might place him on the injured reserve come tomorrow. I don't know when they have to make the designation. And then if no one has picked up Matt Gotel or Jordan Ferguson or Roderick Perry, then they can move those guys over and have them on the 53-man roster after making that shift to injured reserve for some of these players.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And I wouldn't have minded seeing Bell make it, out of all those guys. You'd mentioned him off the top. There was a argument not an argument, but a point of view that maybe keeping him and playing him at fullback made a little more sense than Belore, just mainly because of the salary. And I mean, I can see that, but then again,
guaranteed though.
All right, is it totally guaranteed?
I think I think it was to the point to where he would walk away with enough money that it just didn't make sense. You wouldn't save anything by keeping somebody young.
Gotcha. Well, and at the end of the day, I mean, Belore, again, a national treasure, so don't mind seeing him on the team. One of the guys that did make the roster here at corner that I was happy to see was Artie Burns. He's made some plays throughout this preseason. He made a couple plays in the mock game, and he looks like an amazing depth piece to this secondary.
And a guy who, if Devin Witherspoon has to miss some time, I feel pretty good about him starting and playing in the slot just until Witherspoon can get back and healthy. And by no means is this also the depth chart as to who may be the starter or may not be, because we saw Mike Jackson playing on the right side of the defense and Reek Woolen's normal spot. We saw Trey Brown playing that left cornerback spot. And that's kind of where I'm leaning, unless Witherspoon makes a recovery and he's out there at the left cornerback spot starting week 1. It remains to be seen. Shoot, we saw at practice Jackson Smith and Jigba back and catching footballs at practice. We saw Jordan Brooks. They're talking about him like he's going to be healthy and ready to go for week 1.
Yeah, so encouraging news on JSN, no doubt about that. And then you bring up Brooks. That would be amazing if he was able to get all the way back by week 1. And all of a sudden, that linebacker core at the inside linebacker position looks pretty formidable because Devin Bush has looked pretty good through the preseason.
Mhm.
And John Radigan honestly makes a lot of plays in the run game and a guy that you can plug and play in there. I like that group with a healthy Jordan Brooks.
All right, I take it back. As far as my 2, Levi Bell, you're out. Patrick O'Connell, you're my number 2.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say he's on my list. I don't know where he ranks, but yeah, the Kalispell kid, we needed to see him on the roster. But I think that's a guy that you would have a pretty good chance of stashing on practice squad.
I think so. Yeah, and I've talked to some folks here around town. It sounds like he wants to be a Seahawk, so I think they'll be able to make that happen. And plus, he was the guy who was starting week 2 of the preseason, starting week 3 of the preseason. I would think he would be on the short list for the practice squad if he's he might even be on the short list for some teams to maybe be looking at linebacker to bring him onto their team. But yeah, hopefully he just wants to stay in Seattle.
Yeah, that's the hope, no doubt about that. One of the positions that I thought was interesting as far as the cuts at the back end was going to be safety. And I thought it might be Sutherland who beats out Jarek Reed just with his play in the preseason. But Jarek Reed, he flashed a little bit in preseason week 3, which is what Pete Carroll said that he wanted to see. The one play that sticks out in my mind was a swing pass to a back, and he covered a massive amount of ground and made a really sure tackle that was very impressive. And he had a couple other plays in there as well. So nice to see that, the Rook managed to hold on to the roster spot there.
Yeah, and I did see that it was, there were 3 players who were waived under the injury designation, and I think it was Vi Jones, Sutherland, and Joey Blunt. And so I didn't color code them any differently here, but I think there is I think they get some kind of injury settlement, and then they also have some kind of opportunity. I don't know. It's different in the way they're separate from the other roster cuts. And I think Sutherland was probably, poised to make the team, but then Jarek Reed also had a good third preseason game, like you talked about, and is also healthy-ish.
Yeah, healthy-ish for sure. I did see in the comments here
that because he's a rookie, and I feel like every rookie is hurt somehow.
Yeah, go with your gut on that one because you'd probably be right. It's been a tough year injury-wise for the rookie class. I see in the comments here from Gambling Goat that he hopes that Trey Brown starts over Mike Jack. And honestly, after the last 2 preseason games, there's something about that. Trey Brown has looked pretty darn good. And what a cool story with him coming back from all the injuries.
Yeah. And one of the few guys from the draft class where, what did they pick? 3 guys where it was Trey Brown, Stone Forsythe, and D. Eskridge. So we need one of those guys to be out there starting.
Yeah, we like to hit at least one of those guys. Now, another name that on here at free safety, Kobe Bryant, he's going to be in there at safety, it looks like. But you talked about the idea of injuries and who they might end up in the slot or put in the slot. Kobe Bryant could be a guy that could slip into there, and his versatility is very valuable for the team, no doubt, despite in preseason week 3 having some tackling issues from the safety position.
Jeff Stevens in the chat says, what do you think of Franklin versus Steele this preseason? I feel like
zero thoughts.
It's tough to cut Ben Franklin from your team for one.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like a guy that you'd want to hold on to.
You betcha. Yeah. I mean, what if you need to send somebody to France to negotiate something? Like
that's the guy you send.
Absolutely. Or invent something. Yeah.
I seem to remember more plays from Franklin versus Steele, but it was not a battle that I watched a lot of, to be honest.
Yeah, no, with the depth that we have at corner, those 2 guys were just not guys that I was watching intently throughout the preseason.
No. And at safety, he got Julian Love, Quandre Diggs, Kobe Bryant, Jamal Adams, along with Jarek Reed. Kobe, it's tough to, whether you want to place him with the safeties or the corners, it's kind of nice having that flexible piece. So you can look at that and say, oh, well, they kept 5 of one and 5 of the other, or maybe 6 corners versus 4. But not knowing the status of Jamal Adams and when he might be back, it's definitely nice to have some of that flexibility there.
Oh, absolutely. And you talk about flexibility, and that's Julian Love's middle name, I think, right? And yeah, I mean, talk about another guy that they could, slot into the corner or take and play slot corner and, hold his own. So, and you may see a lot of 3 safety sets in this early part of the season. So we'll see.
Hey, Jordan Brooks, he needs some time to heal. Just put out all those DBs. We'll just play dime a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Big nickel, big dime. I'm into it. And Jamal Adams, he was off the pup list and running around and things like that. He could be back sooner than later as well. So that would be an exciting addition.
The one battle here that we didn't quite mention on the defensive line or at the outside linebacker spot when you're looking at this, the one between Tyreek Smith and Levi Bell, obviously Ty Smith was the one who won out, but a close battle. And I think a lot of it probably has to do with size. Levi, a little bit undersized, but we saw some nice play from him, even going up against bigger guys in the preseason. But I think that size factor, I think it helps him slip through to the practice squad.
Heck yeah. And Ty Smith, let's not take anything away from him. He earned that job. He had a lot of nice plays throughout the preseason, and a guy with tremendous upside that should have been drafted much earlier than he was if it hadn't been for the injuries coming out of college.
Clinton Bonner in the chat trying to take the defensive line off the field and just play 10 DBs. If we had more Cam Chancellors on the team, I could see that working.
Oh man. Yeah. 10 Cams, we'd win the Super Bowl in a heartbeat. Like that's how that would go.
Let's move over to the offense, unless you have anything else you wanted to talk about here on defense.
Nah, I'm good.
All right, here we go. So lots of green for cuts on this side of the ball with, unfortunately, some of the receivers that we talked about. Tyjon Lindsey, Aesop Winston, Cade Johnson cut from the team. Could be another practice squad candidate, but, we hit on him pretty hard for not being able to get his feet in bounds in the game against the Packers.
Yeah.
3 tight ends makes sense, right? I don't know why I have Noah Fant in green because he did make the team. I knew I was going to make a mistake on here somewhere.
Okay, because I was having a little mini freak out there for a second that Fant had been cut. I was like, wait, how did that happen?
Oh, no, he's fine.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, Matt Landers, I would like to see him on the practice squad. I'm very intrigued by his frame and his pedigree and his speed. Yeah, as far as Cade Johnson, yeah, it would have been really sweet to get his feet in bounds on that bomb from Drew. So a guy that has been on the fringe of the roster for a while. Not really surprised to see him go, especially with everybody's preseason darling, Jake Bobo, just showing out. And
he made it.
Obviously, he made it.
He made it. Jake Bobo made the team.
Yeah.
I tried to downplay it all preseason so the Seahawks would not catch on just how much I wanted him to make the team. And it happened. He made it.
He did. He made it. I don't understand the Cody Thompson fascination that this team seems to have. I would have gladly had Aesop Winston on the 53 over Cody Thompson, but they must see something I don't in practice.
Yeah, and this is another spot too where Cody Thompson dealing with injuries. Is that a guy that ends up, getting pushed toward injured reserve, and then they're able to bring back a guy like Aesop Winston or Tyjon Lindsey? I think the guy that I would most like to see out of that group would be Aesop, as we've said over and over, I think, so far. But I'd like to see a few of these guys on the practice squad, whether it's Lindsey, Landers.
Oh, Roderick, baby. We got to have Sir Roderick.
Yeah, we got to have Roderick on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably the guy, too, that depending on injuries in the running back room, we don't know the severity of Kenny McIntosh. So could he go to injured reserve to start the season? And could we see Sir Roderick Thompson on this 53 come Friday?
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. And with the bad history that we've been having with running back injuries, I think it's just paramount to have an extra guy that you've seen. He can play. He can definitely play. And I want that guy. If they brought Ehlers in on practice squad, I wouldn't be sad about it. I mean, he's fine. There's some people that are much higher on him than I am. One guy that I am not sad to see go is Island on the offensive line. We can do better than that.
He had a rough preseason, but he's a guy who's stuck around and been a practice squatter for many years. I don't know if it's been long enough. He may be running out of eligibility at this point, but
Sure.
He may be a guy who you end up seeing on the practice squad. Joey Hunt, a long time. He stuck around the team for a long time too. He may be out of eligibility at this point, but if not, then I'm sure I could see him sticking around. John Hall, another guy at receiver. We did see the nice punt block from him in the preseason. So special teams opportunity there for him as well. If just showing that was enough to maybe keep him around on the practice squad, and having a ton of depth at receiver doesn't hurt either.
No, it certainly doesn't. Not with the way it started out here with JSN and his wrist. Looking at the offensive line a little bit more here, I think the one thing that does concern me a little bit is just depth at left tackle. I mean, Forsyth has been very up and down, and that's a little scary if we end up having to have him in the game for any extended period.
Yeah, one of those positions though too it's tough to find upgrades at, because those are guys that, if you have a competent left tackle as your backup, you're not letting him go. And that's just a position that people don't have a competent third option for, that you keep on the team. A lot of times they move them over to the right side, but that seems like more the spot. We're not going to see Curran take over at left tackle. So it does feel a little bit light there, but Stone might be our option.
Yeah, it does feel that way. Only one backup guard with Anthony Bradford, and I guess they see him as being able to be a swing guard there, and they didn't move him.
Swing tackle guard.
That's true. That's true. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah. Phil Haynes plays both sides. Evan Brown can move over to guard if you move up Oluwatimi. There's some flexibility there outside of left tackle, it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the one spot that none of those other guys can really step in and be an emergency guy for you. But yeah, Oluwatimi, he came out and he played a lot of snaps in week 3. I tried watching him pretty extensively, but watching the center position, turns out it's really hard. It's really hard to keep your focus right there. I had the struggles.
Andrew Cunningham saying the Bobo hype is fun, but if he can produce league average play for 6 weeks, I'll be ecstatic. And we just need him to be able to fill in case, well, who knows how long JSN's even going to be out. Maybe he's back out there, and maybe we don't need a whole lot from Bobo. Well, Derek Young, we don't know the severity of his injury either, but obviously another guy that they wanted to keep on the 53, and then decide if they slide over to injured reserve. There's so many names that I'm curious about whether or not they slide over to injured reserve, in these next couple days, and that's Kenny McIntosh, Derek Young, Cody Thompson. There are a few guys on the defense too, because we don't know the severity of the shoulder injury for Derek Hall. Even have we gotten anything from Pete on that?
I haven't heard anything very definitive. And then, we also have Mike Moe that just had the shoulder procedure done. I don't know what his timetable looks like coming back.
So some question marks in terms of injuries for the team. Tight end, I feel real good about the tight end depth, especially with Noah Fant actually making the team. Hopefully him or his family aren't tuning in and wondering why his name is in green, because it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think Brandan just wanted to be sure to highlight Noah Fant and got confused and put him in green. That must be what it is.
At fullback, Nick Bellore, the lone guy. And we got Ken Walker, DJ Dallas, Kenny McIntosh, Zach Charbonnet. Man, I hope that Charbonnet is not like a fine wine that you have to shelve until he is actually good. I hope that he can be good once the season starts.
Well, kind of what we've seen out of him thus far was a little bit of my fear when he was drafted. I was like, okay, I'm not mad that we spent draft capital on a running back. We tend to need those, and I'm excited about that. And then you go back and you kind of watch his stuff, and he was just running through those massive holes at UCLA. on the regular, and it was like, ooh, he's not going to have that in the NFL. So
No, but he
he
was
has not
finishing
shown.
strong on those runs, and that's what was more appealing when you looked at a lot of those runs.
Yeah, I suppose. I just didn't see him as the power back that many have. But DJ Dallas, I am not surprised at all to see him solidify his position on the roster. A guy who is very dependable, a guy that they can throw back there at punt and kick return, obviously, and do the number one thing, which is possess the ball, and just one of those solid NFL players that is an amazing depth piece to have.
Solid and versatile. And that's why happy he made this team. Yeah, Clinton and I, when we were reacting, what was it? Was it 3? Oh, it was in 3 and 3 out on Sunday, because he had some kind of vague tweet about such as life or something like that. And when players tweet these vague tweets around roster cutdown day, and we're left to interpret them.
Right.
Yeah, I said that it may be something else in life, but it did lead us to speculate that maybe you got some bad news.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's what you could try to read into that. But then again, you guys seem to have forgotten the cardinal rule about things that happen on Twitter.
Right. And they don't matter.
Yeah, if it happens on Twitter, it doesn't matter.
Twitter's not even a thing anymore, and it still doesn't matter.
I mean, nobody's going to start calling it X like on a regular basis, right? Like,
give it the generic social media term.
Yeah.
They've genericified everything else on that platform by calling them posts and reposts.
Oh,
like they've gotten rid of all the tweet language.
Oh, what a tragedy. I hope everybody's doing okay with the Twitter changes. Andrew
Cunningham asking via the chat, what position group are you looking forward to seeing compete now that we see the full roster?
Yeah, I have to say that the one I'm looking the most forward to, not the one that I am most interested in, would be offensive line, man. I want to see these guys go out and be the bullies that I think they can be with the upgrade at center with Evan Brown and his size. Phil Haynes now taking the reins at the starting right guard position, and then the growth out of Cross and Lucas. Not to mention Damian Lewis, Steady Eddie. I just think that can be a really killer group. And if they can be dominant in the run game and then just do what they did last year, the passing game, this offense will be basically unstoppable.
I think for me, the position group I'm most looking forward to would be those edge players. So Boye Mafe, with as much that we saw from him in the preseason, is Darrell Taylor going to be able to come in and push for playing time? Is Derek Hall going to push for playing time at those spots? And you got Mike Moe and those guys on the interior too. So at the edge or end spots and outside linebacker, those are the ones that I feel are really competitive. And when you have that type of competition, who's going to be the guys that are out there on third down and trying to make plays? Because those are the downs that matter, and we want to see guys who can routinely get sacks, make big plays, and based on what we saw from Mafe, it looks like he's poised to make that jump.
Yeah, for sure. It's an exciting group when you think about the Mafe improvement, and we'll see if Darrell Taylor can put together a season here. He's just been so up and down throughout his career here. But I'm actually really high on Ty Smith too. I think he can be a valuable rotational piece there on the outside. But I was most excited to watch the offensive line. I'm most interested to watch the interior defensive line. This defense is going to live and die a little bit with what happens there. And if they can get the sort of consistency there that they so desperately need, especially in the run game.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up the opposite of the question that Andrew asked earlier. Is the opposite would be, which positions are you most concerned about? And interior of the defensive line, it's still it, because Jaron Reed at nose, and then your depth pieces are Cam Young, who we didn't see the entire preseason, Brian Monet, who knows when or if he'll be back. And then you've got a couple guys who are in green right now that would be that extra depth that, one, if you went to them, you'd be concerned, but also, there's not a lot there. So Jaron Reed, get ready to play 70 snaps per game.
Yeah, he's going to earn his cheddar this year. No doubt about it. And Pete's obviously fired up to have him back. He seems excited to be back. And, a great Seahawk when he was here. It will be very great if he can put together the type of season that we're all hoping for out of him, because it kind of starts and stops with him up front. And then obviously we haven't talked much about Draymond, throughout all this.
Right.
And, he's the big offseason acquisition in getting that interior pressure. If he can be that guy that he has shown he was there in Denver, then those outside edge rushers, they are going to be scary because they'll have all of that extra help from pressure up the middle.
It's interesting as I'm watching chat as we're talking here. We have a lot of people who have concerns about particular players, and we brought up Charbonnet's name. There's people who are concerned about him. Sojin saying, is anyone else worried about Devin Witherspoon?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Soft tissue stuff definitely has me worried, but fortunately that is a position that they do have a lot of depth. But you were kind of hoping that you draft another lockdown corner to put next to Reek there. So I'd very much feel better if you see him out and going here in the next couple days.
Well, and then I worry about Jackson Smith and Jigba because, okay, he breaks a bone in his wrist. He seems to have bounced back. He's at practice catching passes already. But, I don't know. When you see these guys who were injured a lot in college and then they come to the pros and they get injured, you start to worry about if that's just a part of the thing that they work through all the time.
Yeah.
And you don't want to see it at the professional level, the constant injuries like we've seen. I mean, that was one of your biggest concerns when he was drafted because you had a little bit of that emotional damage from D. Eskridge.
Oh, yeah.
Gone through the same thing. And we want a healthy JSN.
Yeah, Penny, Eskridge, Procise, like just go down the list, right? The PTSD is real.
Yeah.
Like it was hitting me hard there. So this does seem to be fluky as far as the wrist injury, but you never know. We'll see how it goes. You can't predict the injuries, obviously, but if he can be healthy for the majority of the season, man, just a little bit that he showed, the risk is worth the pick. He's proved that so far.
Yeah. Just be like Schecter 7 and be a pessimist.
Just lower the bar first. Yeah.
Eternal pessimism. JSN and Spoon are injury busts until proven otherwise.
Hey, Schecter is a man after my own heart there. I mean, I definitely try to manage expectations that way, right? Like always set the bar super low, then just anything's a win at that point. Right. So, yeah.
Carly Perkins in the chat saying the first game is so close, but yet so far away.
Yeah, it does feel that way. However, holy smokes, it's here. The next game is week 1 of the regular season, and it seemed like just yesterday we were, talking about, post-draft stuff, and it just seemed months away, and here it is, just a few days. If you think about it, take weeks out of it. Just think about it in terms of days, just a few days.
Well, shoot. Come Thursday, then we have football a week from Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Is it coming up that fast? I feel like it's that fast.
Sure. Yeah. You're asking the guy that plans things out roughly about 4 hours in advance. That's as far as I plan anything.
It has to be. See, 12 days away. What a great number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that feels magical a little bit, doesn't it?
Ryan Bowen asking in the chat, Jalen Carter regrets yet over Spoon.
Nope.
It's going to be like Jalen Carter went to the perfect spot for him to succeed. And it's one of those things that who knows if he would have been successful had he gone anywhere else.
He hasn't been successful in Philadelphia yet either.
No. We've seen some nice things from him preseason, but also he doesn't play nose tackle. So that's the spot that we need dudes at.
Well, that is true. That is true. But yeah, the Jalen Carter part of this, and when we go back and we say it was a good pick, bad pick, or to pass on a guy, talk to me. You could start talking to me about that after year 2, but really you don't know until after about year 3.
Oh, he's on the watch list though. Jalen Carter versus Witherspoon. The nose tackle that went to the Cowboys over JSN.
Keanu Benton. He's been looking good.
Over Derek Hall. Yeah.
Or even Charbonnet.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of
Those ones hurt a little bit. Those are the ones I was freaking out about on draft night, and I was told to pipe down by everybody. So I guess we'll see.
Well, it even goes back. Every single draft class has those guys. You go back when Jordan Brooks was drafted one spot ahead of Patrick Queen, and those guys have been, kind of neck and neck throughout their career. I feel like Brooks has been a little bit better, but yes, you tend to watch those guys.
Absolutely. And Ryan brings up Creed Humphrey, and that was the one that I wanted to go with next year. Yeah, because the Eskridge Humphrey thing, and I was dead wrong on Eskridge. I really thought that he was going to be that slot guy, but just hasn't been able to put it together.
I was dead right on Creed Humphrey.
Yep, you were 100%. Give the man his flowers.
But I think for any of those, we all have our one that we look at that we say, oh yeah, I would have nailed that one. And then we go over, how many whiffs did we also have? It's the same thing as a general manager.
Oh, for sure. We don't have whiffs, Brandon.
Well, not you and me. I mean,
no, we nail everything every time, just like my mount and camera angle for this live streaming.
We nailed it, man. It stayed there, and the camera it didn't fall over this entire stream.
You would laugh at my custom camera mount that I built out of plywood in a nail gun. Like, hey, that's what I had to do.
You got it together in 5 minutes as we were going live for the show. You got it done, and we were able to put together our 53-man reaction.
Heck yeah. And I think overall, you look at that 53-man roster, Brandon, and that's a highly competitive roster. There's no way that you look at that and be like, oh, hell's bells, it's going to be a rough season just talent-wise.